count on us playing our best 5 offensive linemen, and what position each guy plays, within the offense, within the offensive line is to be determined.
Jim Harbaugh has said a lot of things about the offensive line, and we know how much he values that position. I mean, that's why they drafted Joe Alt at 5. But I think that there is another reason that the Chargers drafted Joe Alt that I've not really seen a lot of people talk about, and I think that this could be very important and come into play during the season or maybe even as soon as training camp. Now, I'm not saying that this is the only reason that they selected Joe Alt, but I do think that this went into their decision-making process. So here's the full breakdown. So Joe Alt, he was the best offensive lineman on the board, and he plays a premium position, left tackle. The obvious thought process here, it's pretty simple. Protect Justin Herbert at all costs. I mean, he is the prime asset on this team, and we want him to stay healthy and have time to throw. Joe Alt helps with establishing the run also because he's a great run blocker and he's a great pass blocker. So you're also taking pressure off of Justin Herbert by being able to run the ball better. And also you're being able to protect him better when you do want to throw the ball. So boom, double whammy by drafting Joe Alt. It's simple. But also he's probably the safest player in the draft because his game's going to translate very well to the next level. But the secret message here, I think, in this pick involves Trey Pipkins. So the Chargers right now, they have both Rashawn Slater and Trey Pipkins in the second to last year of their contracts, and they're not likely to keep both of these guys on the team, especially now that they just drafted a tackle at 5th overall. I mean, by adding a tackle this year, you are preemptively addressing a huge hole on your offensive line, and you're doing it by adding the best tackle prospect in the draft this year. And by the way, tackle, left tackle and right tackle, both of those spots on the offensive line are premium positions in today's NFL. And Rashawn Slater's 5th-year option was picked up recently. I think it was like last week that they did that. So he's going to be getting about $19 million in 2025, which is going to be a big pay bump from his $5 million salary this season. But they are also likely to extend his contract because obviously he's been a very good left tackle, and even though he has had some injuries, like he struggled last year with those ankle injuries, he played like all year injured. Finding guys like Rashawn Slater is extremely difficult to do, and I think the Chargers, if they're going to invest big money at any position, I think that they've proven it's probably not going to be wide receiver after the Keenan Allen and Mike Williams moves, and I think it's probably going to be offensive line, specifically that tackle position, because remember, Jim Harbaugh said...
Yeah, Rashawn Slater, he's locked in as the left tackle. No debate needed for that. All the guys, we start talking tackle, I mean, as I expressed in a lot of the meetings, I would play with 5 tackles, if we could. I mean, the big, long, athletic, strong guys. I mean, don't rule anything out.
So with that being said, I think Rashawn Slater is likely to stay on this team for the long haul with that contract extension coming up. But Trey Pipkins is entering maybe his final year with the Chargers because he is making almost $9 million this year and is set to make even more next year. And I just want to put this into perspective, okay? Trey Pipkins is the highest paid player on the offense outside of Justin Herbert, and he is only an average right tackle. Like, yes, he plays a premium position, but he's not at the top of that position. He's just average. He's on a pretty good deal in terms of like what good offensive linemen go for nowadays, but he should not be the most expensive player on offense outside of Justin Herbert. I mean, is he the most valuable player on this offense that is not named Justin Herbert? I think we can all agree that he certainly is not. So with the selection of Joe Alt, this tells me that they'd rather get an upgrade over Trey Pipkins at a cheaper cost and get younger as well. They don't want to just stay average at right tackle and really anywhere on this offensive line. I think they want to be well above average. They want that unit to be elite and dominant. And Trey Pipkins, he's going to be 29 next year, while Joe Alt is going to be 22, and probably he's going to come into the NFL and play better than Trey Pipkins right away. Trey has an out on his contract after this season that's going to save the team $7 million on the cap, and just look at what they did in free agency this season with that kind of money. I mean, for $6.54 million, the team signed Gus Edwards, Bradley Bozeman, Denzel Perriman, and J.K. Dobbins. So you could get that kind of haul of free agents next year just by exercising the out on Trey Pipkins' contract. And on top of that, you're getting an upgrade at that position, the right tackle position, and getting 7 years younger. I mean, this is a cost-controlled move that resets the clock at right tackle, one of the positions that they value the most, a premier position, and they get an upgrade while doing it. I mean, this is just a great move by Joe Hortiz, but right now, we don't know exactly where Trey Pipkins is going to be on this offensive line. I think the only thing that we know for certain about this offensive line is that Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt are going to be the tackles this year, the starting tackles, and they're very likely going to be our franchise tackles for the next 5 to 7 years. I mean, we might have the best tackle duo in the NFL right now if Joe Alt plays the way that we all expect. So this offensive line, they really just had a huge turnaround, and Justin Herbert is going to be a lot better for it, and so is this run game also. But we can also expect Zion Johnson to continue to start at left guard, I think for a couple reasons. And the first reason is you want to have that continuity on the left side. Chemistry is very important on the offensive line. And Zion Johnson, he needs to have continuity. I mean, just for himself to play the same position for back-to-back years, which is something that he has not done since high school, but also for Rashawn Slater, your franchise left tackle, because they need to communicate more effectively on their combo blocks and passing guys off to each other in pass protection. It's going to help with their communication on that left side. And then the second reason is Zion Johnson, he's a first-round pick, and you don't want to just give up on him. And I'm not saying that just because you invested a first-round pick into this guy that he has more leeway. I am saying, though, that he's got a ton of potential, and there's a reason he was such a highly rated prospect, so you should be able to tap into that gold mine there. And also, have you guys seen the new pictures of Zion Johnson? I mean, this dude is becoming the Hulk. He's got a computer science degree from Boston College, and now he's coming off of bulk season, entering training camp with Ben Herbert. Bro, Jim Harbaugh is going to love this guy. But now my final reason that we can expect Zion Johnson to start at left guard is he's a better run blocker than a pass blocker. And yes, I understand he struggled in pass protection last year. I've been saying that for a long time now. He allowed 4 sacks, which that is a lot. I understand that. But Jamaree Salyer, the right guard, he's a worse run blocker, and he allowed 8 sacks last year. I think Zion fits the bill of athletic and powerful offensive lineman that Jim Harbaugh wants. And I think he's going to have a resurgence in year 3, especially now that we're going to have a veteran center next to him, helping him to identify those blitzes and stunt moves, which is what he struggled with in pass protection this past season. I expect Bradley Bozeman to start at center because even though he did allow 8 sacks last year, which is the most by a center in the NFL, he still graded better and played better than Will Clapp and Brendan Hymus, who filled in for us after Corey Linsley went down. And actually, this was really interesting. According to PFF, Corey Linsley was the 26th highest graded center, while Bradley Bozeman was the 28th highest graded center. So it's a slight downgrade, but a much cheaper option and 3 years younger, which again, that's the Joe Hortiz move. Even though it is a downgrade, a slight downgrade according to PFF, there are still some positive takeaways there. So that leaves the only open spot on this offensive line as the right guard position. And Jim Harbaugh, he has had some high praise for Trey Pipkins, and they've been flirting with the idea of moving Trey to guard. If they do that, and he plays well there this season, he would need to play like a top 20 guard in the NFL because he would be getting paid like one. I mean, that is the kind of money that he's getting right now. I think for this season, if he can make the move to guard, that would be great because he's athletic. He's got great size, especially for guard. He's 6'6", 310 pounds, which is a little slimmer. So he's not too tall so that he's going to have leverage problems on the inside, but he's also not really like as thick as Zion Johnson. Pause. I mean, if he could just be an average right guard the way he was an average right tackle, it would help out this offensive line so much, and we wouldn't have like a glaring weakness along the offensive line. Plus, we wouldn't have the second highest paid player on offense as the backup swing tackle for this whole season. I mean, I think that is something that they're thinking about legitimately. And then another thing that you have to think about is they could trade Trey Pipkins around training camp or even during the season to save $4 million on the cap and also get a draft pick in return. If he can't make that move to guard and he's the backup swing tackle, that might be the best move to make. And we know how much Joe Hortiz values those draft picks. And he's also been saying that he is keeping a lot of cap space open for some in-season trades. So we know that he's planning on being active in the trade market anyways during the football season. Why would you not trade your backup tackle if you have two guys that you're starting out there and he's your highest paid player on offense outside of the quarterback? Like, that's just begging for a trade. And I know you're probably thinking, who the heck would want Trey Pipkins? Listen, bro, lots of teams have very below average tackles. And I know this might sound crazy, but Trey Pipkins, as just an average right tackle, he could be a very valuable trade piece that a lot of teams want in the NFL. So overall, I think asking Trey Pipkins to make that move to the right guard spot, it's kind of a tough ask because he's not as thick, like I said, as Zion Johnson, but he's 6'6". He's not going to have leverage issues. He has never played guard in his career, even going back to college. He's only been playing left tackle and right tackle. I would genuinely be shocked if Trey Pipkins was still on this team after this season. So that means I'm expecting Trey Pipkins to either be cut after this season if he is still on the team, but I'm also not ruling out a trade during the season or during training camp once teams start to make those cuts, because Trey Pipkins, just as an average player, he's got a lot of value just because he's a right tackle. I think you could get like a 5th, maybe a 4th round pick out of Trey Pipkins, but I also wouldn't rule out just like a player for player trade because I think we still need help along that defensive line. And then maybe even the wide receiver room. Maybe he's still looking to add to that position because we don't know what they think about Quentin Johnston, but I want to know what you guys think about Quentin Johnston because I watched every single snap. Do you think he's a bust?